Please remain standing for the national anthem of Switzerland.
Who's your run into?
Rich girl from Colorado
Yeah.
goes to Middlebury, gets refuge in Middlebury, masters in Syracuse, then there's another match.
Here comes game number 4 as Switzerland takes the field against the Netherlands. Live on YouTube, the 2019 Women's European Lacrosse Championship. In our 4th game out of 6. In the first full day of action, the Netherlands in their familiar orange. The Swiss in white on white. Ralph Benarchik alongside Steffi Samaras, head coach of the Greek development team, who is playing here in the tournament as a festival team. That joins me once again for the analysis. We just finished up a very good finish, 10-7 Latvia, defeating Italy, and now as the Netherlands advanced it, they turned it over to the Swiss. Great chats with both head coaches, including Swiss head coach Julia Duffy. Just spent the last 3 seasons at Merrimack, and now the team is moving up from Division II to Division I in her first appearance in a national tournament. So the Swiss looking to transition, and the other way, Stephanie Berger. As Berger, a starting midfielder, will cross the restraining line, and the Swiss will go to work on the offensive end. It's a Swiss team that Coach Duffy described that has a lot of returning experience, only about 5 first-time players, and a lot of players that have appeared in World Championships and European Championship games before. So she hopes with her experience coaching, she's brought in to try to take them up a peg.
It's almost like she's trying to emulate what she's doing at Merrimack, going from Division II to Division I. She wants to take this Swiss team to the next level as a European country, and she's got some flair too. The one thing about Julia that you need to understand is that she's got a rock star personality, and when coaches have a rock star personality, their teams tend to take on similar personalities.
Shot in tight, was missed at Amaris Brandsma. This is her first tournament appearance for the Netherlands. There's been a long-time club player, and Amaris is in goal for the Dutch. And a defense that has had a solid man-to-man. They will trickle in some zone under assistant coach Taylor Brown, who is a U.S. native who now lives full-time in the Netherlands, under head coach Adam Gray, who is Welsh. The leadership of the Netherlands with the Swiss maintaining this first possession. Temperatures have dropped, the shadows have started to creep out. I'm not sure if we'll have water breaks for this one, but finally we are into the late afternoon portion.
Yes, the heat will not be affecting the mental focus of these athletes.
Evelyn Eicher, as she's able to spin the ball back behind of Amaris Brandsma. Stephanie Berger. And on top it comes for the split dodge, coming from Salome Baumberger. Baumberger, so important to the development of the culture. We'll tell her story as Baumgartner shooting, and that one is off the left pipe. Brandsma, late reaction or no reaction. Feed back to the 8, and a finish of the Swiss with Deborah Shorno getting the goal on the attack. Spent 1 year in the U.S. as a walk-on at Randolph-Macon, showing up there as a student. She gets the first one today for the Swiss.
Oh, I love Randolph-Macon. Mary Kate Jaratowski is the coach at Randolph-Macon. She was actually my assistant coach at Richmond in 2011. Done great things with that program. You know, it was interesting, that last play, I think the initial shot by the Swiss caught all of the Netherlands defenders off guard, and they didn't even see that last shot being taken and the goal.
Yeah, that was the shot by Salome Baumberger that got and created the scramble situation. Draw control, that's a tough one earned by the Dutch as they have it as Mika Den Bakker. As Den Bakker approaches, and in goal for the Swiss is Louisa Moser. Moser, a small and quick goalie, but very aggressive. The Dutch, They're among the deepest teams here, Steffi, as assistant Taylor Brown maintains they may run as many as 8 midfielders consistently. Getting there to the front, and this shot turned away. Dika Spitzen, the shooter. But 8 midfielders, that is England-like. And Taylor Brown and head coach Adam Gray feel that their strength is their depth. They'll also run a 4th and 5th attacker, a 4th defender consistently. They may play the most players consistently out of anybody. And they pick up a shooting space off the skip pass. So Melle van Dilkt will head to the 8.
Right now their ball movement is on point, and the Swiss can hardly continue to keep their heads moving on the swivel. I love the pass from low to high.
Van Dilkt.
It's one of the passes that you rarely see. You see the high to low pass, but the low to high pass is a very rare pass, and then so much more can be created off of it because of the picks that can be set on the crease.
They clear out for Dika Spitzen. Spitzen on the rollback. And well defended here by the Swiss, but the pass and the cut is perfect. The cut from Janneke Bacchus. Dika Spitzen never panicked. And we're even at 1.
Timing has been a really big key with the cutting here, especially with the teams that don't necessarily play the 2-man game. If you can be offside or weak side of the ball and have some great timing on your cuts, we're seeing a lot of people get open, which says defensively we need to do a better job of staying with our cutters. And both teams just had complete midfield changes.
And the next draw controller up for the Dutch. 4 different draw controllers, too, in that depth that they'll use, and they all have different strengths. Here is Rihanna Ostwoud Videnis. Ostwoud Videnis tried to self-draw, and for the Swiss, they put up 23 in run. Hannah Brocker. Jacinta Idibelli with the feed across, the clear for the Swiss. And their second possession.
Looks like the Netherlands goalie wants to be as active as the Latvia goalie outside the cage.
And the Dutch feel they have 2 solid netminders, but it is Amarens Brandsma that gets the nod. The other goalie is Frida Berenson. Wing dodge from Janine Reichner. And Reichner, short angle shot. Looked like she tried to beat Brandsma to the short side. And the backup will keep it with the Swiss. And it's an offense that Coach Julie Duffy described, gave them a little bit more structure and more settled in the spring. And then she went to the shop, went to the lab, speaking to her Merrimack men's college coaches for more 6-on-6. That's a good feed inside. And the Swiss are back in front.
That is a classic pick and pop on the elbow. So you have 2 girls set up on the elbow with the ball behind, and one of the 2 girls sets a pick for the first girl to go through. The girl who sets the pick pops out to the wing, and depending on how the defense reacts to that pick and pop, you can deliver the ball inside or you can deliver the ball outside.
We will get a water break here, but the goal coming for the Swiss, and the finish was from Ann Lee. And one of the captains, Layla Haller, picking up the assist. So 2-1 Swiss here in a spirited start to this one. And the Netherlands very happy with all the experience that they've brought back. And meanwhile, from the Swiss perspective, Coach Julie Duffy made 5 training trips back and forth over the last year and a half. So she feels the program's done a complete 180. They did a December tournament, a February 2019 tournament, and 2 tournaments in April. And they were one of the teams that participated in that 9-team tournament in Latvia in April. She was happy that they gave this Netherlands team a good game. Italy, Latvia, despite not having a full roster. So that is the Swiss approach. And she feels actually the biggest difference has not actually been skill-wise, but from a mental standpoint, that there is now a feeling and a belief that her girls belong out here and belong to win.
And that's probably the type of culture that she creates with her kids. You know, again, countries sometimes, or people sometimes think that these countries are together all the time, practicing all the time. And in reality, she's chosen to do more with their program, but there are other countries that can't do more from whatever standpoint, and are only together twice a year. And you look at the U.S. team; they're really only together 2 or 3 times a year.
Off the draw control following the water break, and the Netherlands looking to push transition, and they get the knockdown pass, and it'll come into the cradle of their netminder as they will look to go through Mosier, but then Mosier's pass, that was deflected out of bounds as Stephanie Brock could not come up with it. By the way, congratulations to Stephanie Brock, starting defender for the Swiss, married last week on Friday. Honeymoon's going to have to wait for the European Women's Lacrosse Championships.
I feel like that's a trend.
Yeah.
Wasn't it one of the Latvians who just got married?
lacrosse after getting married? Yes, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah, that could be something.
Like that quickly after getting married? Props to her, though. And I think it was one of the Latvian girls who had just got married.
Yes, yep. So lacrosse
Good
is not
men in
going to
their
stop.
lives.
Yep. You know what? That's another good point. I like the sound. I like the sound of that. Shot inside, and this one is also off cage. Good challenge by Moser, as Sarah Sweerts der Landis Viborg had the look. She's in her 10th year playing for the Netherlands, and she's the only player with any U.S. college experience on the Netherlands roster. Quick stick inside. This one past Moser. It could not be finished. That was Mella Van Dilkt that got to the doorstep. So as Mosier outletted, and here comes Jacinta Idebelli.
Netherlands is the first team we've seen so far that's sent a field player to the goalie to send that pressure. I don't know what that's going to do if they can get the rest of their defense set up in their ride, but it could cause some issues down the rest of the game.
Reichner will deal it back behind to Anouk Andres, who is something of the quarterback of this offense for the Swiss. Brocker. Hannah Brocker, she is from the German area of the country of Switzerland. Brocker shooting, stick side save, easy one for Amarens Brandsma.
You know, you talk about the quarterback of the offense, and we've been talking a lot over the last 4 games about most of these offenses being run from up top. You're not used to seeing your quarterback.
The Netherlands, they convert transition, a broken play. Sweerts der Landis Viborg. It's a 2-all game. The Swiss were not able to get balanced up defensively. Sarah Sweerts der Landis Viborg, it's a mouthful, but she spent 2 years playing at the University of Vermont before returning back to the Netherlands. She grew up in England playing, so she's the most experienced player, having grown up with the sport since the age of 11 or 12.
We were talking about quarterback in the offense, and it's been interesting to see this quarterbacking happening in front of the cage instead of behind the cage, which is what we're so used to on the international level. And I'm thinking it's because of the space that they now have in the 6-on-6 game instead of the 7-on-7 game unit play around the cage.
I wonder, that's a good point, Steffi. How do roles change in a 6-on-6 compared to the women's 7-on-7? Because in the women's 7-on-7, you have 4 low attackers, you have a righty crease feeder, you have a lefty crease feeder. I'm not sure, and usually they are both in a similar kind of style, but hold that thought. A split dodge to the front, a tough one. Anouk Andres puts the Swiss back in front. 3-2.
So I think it's really all about personnel. You know, you have, and what's trending in the sport of lacrosse at the time. You know, 5 or 6 years ago, you would have had if you didn't have a right and a left hand, regardless of what position you played, you weren't considered a good player. Now it doesn't really matter. We've sort of gone back to hey, if you have a developed strong hand that you can use on both sides of your body, you're just as good as the dual-handed players or the players who would be considered ambidextrous. But it also depends on your personnel and where you like to run your offense from. I think the best offenses are the offenses that can change their point of attack and change it very quickly. You only have so much time before the defense resets once you shift the ball. So if you can move the ball and attack from that certain area, if you don't have it, and then change your point of attack, now you have the defense shifting out of whatever type of defense that might be playing, a man, a zone. We have a lot of backers now, which is almost purposely putting yourself man down to create a chaos situation. There are a lot of teams that perform better defensively in a chaos situation. And again, that is all personnel based. If I were looking at a team like Indian, I don't know if they necessarily had a lefty on their offense that I can necessarily remember, but they sure did have two righties that could do anything from anywhere. And that's probably where a coach like Julie Duffy from Swiss is going to bring more of a personnel and what type of culture does she want her team to have on and off the field that's going to propel her program.
No. It's a 3-2 lead for the Swiss. So out of the timeout by the Netherlands. The ensuing draw will be taken by the Dutch again by Rihanna Ostwald Videnis. And the Swiss collect the draw control outside the line and the outlet ahead. The Swiss will redirect calmly to their defense and look for the clear. And now nursing along this 1-goal advantage, Julia Marty. What a spectacular story. She's one of the captains, a former bronze medal winning ice hockey player in the Olympics in Sochi for the Swiss. Retiring from hockey and then kind of re-picking up her lacrosse career. She played in the U.S. at Northeastern college hockey, however. But this is a ground ball. Amaris Brandsma will come up with it. We'll see Marty handle it consistently in the midfield.
So she's a part of that Kelly Amonte tree. And when Kelly first started at Northwestern, half of her lacrosse team were soccer players that she just one day chose, hey, here's a lacrosse stick. Well, let's see what you guys can do with it.
Great similarities, yeah, because Marty, lacrosse was secondary to her, always in her back pocket. But of course, being an Olympian-level hockey player, that had to prioritize. But what a fine pickup for someone like Julia Duffy and her winning experience that she's had playing in a big stage.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where if you can go to the Olympics in any sport, you go, regardless of the sport.
Louisa Moser just stopped Sweets Delandis Viborg on the free position, but she gets it back and then misses the shot. Sweets Delandis Viborg, a quality look as she raced in, and the Swiss fortunate that they still have the lead following a failed clear.
We're seeing similar rides with the Swiss and Netherlands that we saw in the Latvia-Italy game. It looks like they're going into a zone ride and dropping to the restraint line.
Another opportunity, a third of the possession. Sweets Delandis Viborg. 3-all as she gets her second. On the hard sweep across. So the Netherlands has found something in her power dodging. So we're at 3 apiece following the Netherlands timeout. Late stages of this opening quarter. The clock only stops on a called timeout or in the final 30 seconds of a quarter on a foul or a goal. Otherwise, it's a continuous clock. Kimberly Furboom, this time on the draw circle for the Netherlands. But the wing handles it in Louisa Koopmans.
this could end up being a who wins the 50-50 draw. Nobody's actually come up with it clean. It's always hit the ground and then become a battle for the ground ball.
Short time now for the Netherlands. Fjorboom with the official on the field, and there it is. And the players have not been able to quite get the sense of urgency. There is no stadium clock here as we close out the opening quarter, tied at 3 between the Netherlands and the Swiss in a spirited one.
Yeah, I think both of these teams are really excited to get their first win under their belt. You could feel the enthusiasm that both of the teams had as they entered the stadium during the Latvia-Italy game. And even as they warmed up, I think this is probably the most energy we've seen pregame.
And I think there's great energy, especially continue the conversation we had with Julia Duffy, the head coach of the Swiss, is that the confidence, she's starting to see it, and as she feels if we show up the way we're capable of, we can win games in this tournament. And the Swiss feel that this is another building block, as most programs do, ahead of 2021 in Towson for the next World Championships, to move forward and set up tremendous structure for the future. There's about 5 club programs in the country of Switzerland that play, so it's not as deep. The Netherlands, for example, they have 8 club teams that play, so they have a little bit more to choose from, but they're decently well run and put together, and that's where a player such as Salome Baumberger comes together, because Baumberger is especially instrumental in recruiting players, both to play for this team and to play for the club, and people that are self-invested, not just for themselves, but for the entire organization.
Yeah, it's definitely been the trend in these growing national teams and giving back to the sport in your country. And again, you know, we've seen examples of national teams that have experienced players on their team and have brand new players on their team, and the reason a lot of those programs do that is so the experienced players can pass along their experience to these new generation of players for their country. I mean, you look at the Lucy Lynch and the Emma Hawkins and Ros Lloyd from Wales, and they're going on potentially their 5th and 6th World Cups, respectively, and you can only imagine that if you're one of the new Welshies or one of the new Brits coming into that program, you'd want to be a sponge with one of those players and just soak everything in, take all of their knowledge.
Second quarter about to begin. The Vententon club that was started by Salome Baumberger to add to the numbers that Switzerland has, and so getting some more depth is certainly something. They are missing a key player, a starting attack that would be among their chief quarterbacks, Franziska Fitzi. Fitzi is over there on the Swiss bench, still accompanying the team in the Swiss Championship Club tournament. She was hit actually by one of her current teammates here, Vera Pfeiffer, who's a starting defender. And she was hit and ended up suffering torn cartilage in her knee. But Franziska Fitzi still traveled along as the translator, interpreter, team manager, water girl, so she's over there. We saw her hobbling around before. And she stopped by with Julie Duffy just to say hi earlier as they greeted us.
Yeah, I think that's probably a part of what Coach Duffy's trying to do with the culture that she wants to create with her program. You know, it would probably have been very easy for them to leave her at home, but it was probably more important to them in the culture that they're creating for this program as they want to start to be one of the teams on the rise, to have her here, to see the girls on the team, see her on the sideline having to be confident in them and not actually help them on the field, and what that can do for when she returns, and the confidence they'll have in her, the confidence that she'll have in them.
What kind of value, Steffi, do you take from the injured player? Yes, you already have your coaches set up, but when injured players are on the bench and what they may be able to provide the healthy players, can it be a lot different than the coaches?
Well, I think you have to start one step higher. I think it's the relationship that's built between the player and the coach when the injury initially happens, and what type of relationship then the coaches want the players to have, the injured player to have. If they are that much of an impact player, they need to become somewhat of a player coach. Although they can't get on the field, their experience as potentially a quarterback of the team can be communicated maybe even sometimes better because they're on the same level as the rest of the players on the team. And you see a lot of examples of that in the sport of men's basketball, professional football and professional basketball. These injuries that happen, and then those players become sort of like the hype guys of their teams. I think it can translate the same way in women's lacrosse and can be treated the same way.
Hannah Broker took last draw control for the Swiss, and Jacinta Idebelli was fouled. 3 all game, and now the Swiss throw it away. Good pressure here by the Netherlands as they look to turn things the other way, as Mika Den Bakker, a one-time coach of the U19 team at the Netherlands. Problems clearing, though, for the Netherlands as they throw it away. So the Swiss with an aggressive redefend, and they've got it again. We just had the closest game. So far, this is the 5th total game of 49 that you can watch either through YouTube or through the Olympic channel. Here from Netanya, Israel, from the 2019 European Women's Lacrosse Championship. It's going to be exhausting, but stay with us.
So far, the Netherlands has done a great job of getting so close, and what they're missing is that last step. So they have this great job, they get in position, they make Switzerland turn the ball over, and then they can't pick up the ground ball.
The Netherlands does come up with a ground ball as Oostwoud Videnis transitions it. And the Dutch looking for their first lead as we're tied at 3, early second quarter. And the foul called against Jacinta Idebelli. Free position for the Dutch. Sweerts de Landis Viborg again. As she goes in for the finish, beating Louisa Moser. So Sweerts de Landis Viborg has shown off her shooting. The Dutch lead for the first time.
Yeah, so this is the 3rd goal for Viborg, and I think she's the first player we've seen that has taken control and not only become the quarterback, but also become the finisher. And sometimes those positions go hand in hand, and sometimes they don't. And it's interesting to see. She held the ball up top, and I think all of the Swiss knew, and all of the Netherlands players knew that she was going one-on-one.
She's got 3 of the 4. Hannah Broker returns to the draw circle for the Swiss. And she'll take the majority of which. That one looking to self-draw for the Dutch was Kimberly Feuerboom. And it'll come right back into the circle, and the ground ball for the Dutch. So the Netherlands now with the lead and the ball. Sweerts de Landis Viborg goes back to her left hand shooting, nearly lulling the defense to sleep that she would carry behind. She has backup.
I actually really like that decision. A lot of people would say that's a no-angle shot and that she shouldn't have taken that, but I really like that chance. She saw that she had backup behind the cage, so she could go for it, potentially shoot wide, and still maintain possession of the ball.
Dutch go behind for Oostwoud Videnis. Feuerboom Switched to Landis Viborg. Shoots lefty this time. Moser makes the save with the stick or even partially the helmet, the way that ball came up. And the pursuit for Idebeli. The Dutch commit the foul.
Again, you had another very planned one-on-one by the Netherlands.
Yeah, check that. The Dutch are the beneficiaries, so they called it on Jacinta Idebeli. And she tried to transition. She may have tried to cover the ball that was on the ground with her stick.
That's that third defender, the sideline. You get scared of it sometimes. It makes you do illegal things. Like cover the ball.
Louisa Koopmans. Koopmans rolling through the 8. Broker cuts her off. Switch to Landis Viborg. She finds a seam and then couldn't finish the shot. Moser will calm things down. Louisa Moser plays for the Bern Club team. She was the backup goalie 2 years ago in the World Championships and works as a fitness coach in the city of Bergdorf. She actually put the Swiss coaching staff through a tailored workout for them.
Ooh.
Julie Duffy said they were sore for 2 days.
Ooh, I love that.
So you'd be all for it. I was just about to ask you, Steffi, if you had someone on one of your teams, your Greek teams or your high school, college teams, would you allow them to put you through the grinder?
So I love that. I think it allows you, from a coaching standpoint, if you can train with your players, maybe not play against them or play with them, it allows you to, one, I think, gain a little bit more respect, regardless of your skill level against their skill level. And then from a training standpoint, from a fitness standpoint, if you can go through the similar workout that your players can go through, they have another level of respect from you because you know their pain.
Imke Dahan will go to the 8-meter. Now, for the record, I'm not sure if Louisa does those workouts or if it's just a plan. There's the shot off the quick free position jump. And the Dutch taking the 5-3 lead. Imke Dahan.
If she doesn't do the workouts and she's just putting the coaching staff through the workouts, then I love it even more that the coaching staff is saying, hey, you basically stand there with a whistle and tell us what to do. And then we're going to flip it on you and come back and be your coaches.
A timeout on the field, 5-3. The Netherlands, they've gotten 3 in a row. And Louisa Moser, they may not be a workout for that kind of shot, as Imke Dahan put it low and is able to beat her to the stick side. So it's a 5-3 score as we get the designated water break here midway through the second quarter. Ralph Bjornarcher with Steffi Samaras bringing you our 4th game out of 6. The Czech Republic will follow next. And then our nightcap will be Sweden and Finland. To close things out, that game should get going at 10:20 local time in the marathon first day. And Steffi, this would actually be 5 of 7 for you because you played this morning.
I did.
So tell us about how your Greek team did. The Israeli developmental team, as I understand it, they have a lot of dedicated young players. They're not necessarily hiding anybody out there. They seem to have a good core of about 15 people that is pretty devoted and decently level 1 through 15.
Yeah, they're very similar to their elite squad. They have a group of Americans within that 15 and then a group of Israelis that are brand new. Another great thing that the developmental team has done, which is what we're trying to do with Greece, is a lot of their American-born players are coaching their teammates on the field. And Greece, this is the first game that 5 of these girls have ever played in. They've never played anything more than like a 6-on-6. So having to go back and forth between both ends, I won't lie, switching ends of the field after the quarter threw me for a loop. Playing, it was great. You know, I think the first quarter was pure shock for Greece. We were down 7-0 and we ended up losing 11-5. So over 3 quarters, it was a 6-5 game. We were able to get going offensively and hold our own for the last 3 quarters of the game. And, you know, it's interesting. I'm one of the lucky people in this world that I got to wear the USA uniform, and now I got to wear the Greek uniform. And completely 2 different experiences, both amazing. I didn't realize how much this one would affect me with regards to the heritage of my father, being from Trikala, Greece, and what that would potentially mean for him. And my daughters who all qualify to play for Greece if they so choose.
Yeah, it's definitely something that for the Americans that participate for these teams, it's a chance to greatly reconnect and even learn the language of their parents if they already don't know it. Mika Den Bakker, shot is blocked. Swooping in though, the Dutch just a little bit quicker for that ground ball in the corner in Dika Spitzen. And now rolling back is Melle Van Dilkt. And down goal line extended, wave off the shot from Kosha Hamink. So they'll put Kosha on the left wing for a free position. And the Swiss are going to need a save somewhere here from Louisa Moser. They trail 5-3 after a strong first quarter. Hamink is able to pierce the corner. That's a righty shooting to the far wing. Kosha Hamink makes it 6-3 Dutch.
I think that the Swiss are doing a pretty good job of double teaming on the ball at the right time. Where they're lacking is getting back to the open player once they've doubled the ball, and that's what the Netherlands seems to be taking advantage of.
Timeout called now by the Swiss, and Julie Duffy needs to regroup. They've lost several draw controls during this run, but it's 4 in a row. And all the shots for the Netherlands right now are extremely high percentage. De Haan on free position. Sweerts, De Landis, Viborg with 2 in-tight shots, and Hamink there on the last one also on free position.
And we saw at the water break, Coach Duffy was working with her goalie on some specific things. So I don't know if they were trying to make a change based off of what the Netherlands was doing, or because she has a short, quick goalie, and the Netherlands are moving her very well in the cage.
And the shots have been high. How do you communicate things to your attackers, Steffi? You were especially in your time, you were a taller attacker. when you saw 5-footish goalies, how do you treat that, or do you really go after it and attack it until it's proven that they can stop it?
You know, it's interesting. I think you see the attackers that can finish well, which is one of the sort of the vernacular we use for the girls who can finish over and over and over again. It's really about how you're pulling the goalie across the crease. A lot of attackers have a signature fake. A lot of times the better attackers have the ability to fake with their stick and fake with their body. They do different things every single time, you know. We've seen some attackers do the exact same move and still be successful. And then we've seen attackers who have been able to do moves from all over the field. Showing something different to a goalie can really mess with their confidence. And I think that's the one position that you have to mentally be checked in the entire time as a goalkeeper. And as we saw in one of the games earlier today with the change of the goalie right before halftime, sometimes you just need to get them out of the pipes and have them refocus in and see what they can do. But finishing is one of the hardest things to do. I know there are people who can score really well, but I think there is a difference between finishing and scoring.
The Netherlands, they finished shots. They have an opportunity actually as Imke De Haan tried to squeeze through and get a call on the 8-meter, but the Swiss did well not fouling. And now they come the other way.
you can see the Netherlands set up in their zone ride. They have the first line, they have the second line, and then they have the last line.
Vera Pfeiffer. As Pfeiffer got it ahead and looking for the clear, they'll get it here. And that'll get back in a nice groove they were as Stephanie Berger carried it across. Andres. And Andres being pestered here by a double team. And no one showing themselves here to Andres. And it leads to a ball on the ground, and very fortunate are the Swiss. No one came to help her. So Anouk Andres here for Stephanie Berger. Berger, a super athletic midfielder. Strong first couple days. Julie Duffy says Berger's been their most improved player since the month of December, since she took over. Played well in the scrimmage a couple days ago against Ireland. Shooting space for Salome Baumberger.
Salome's
in what
got
feels
some-
like a critical shot.
Yeah, I think she's got some really great height, and I don't know if the Swiss are using it as well as they could. She's also got this great stick.
And Baumberger, the shot bothered. It came in weakly on Amaris Brandsma.
I'm a big proponent of making sure that you go straight to the cage if you have an 8-meter, especially with one of the critical hashes. Pulling around a defender just allows the defense to crash a little bit more on you.
And I think a lot of officials would probably admit it also puts them to be less susceptible to call the ensuing foul. However, the Dutch can't pay it off because they turn it over themselves. So Layla Haller, known as a terrific communicator, as she runs into the ride of the Dutch. And a card has been issued. A card has been issued against Layla Haller. She's going to head off for 2 minutes, so we'll have our first man down. The official here right in front of us indicating maybe a swing of the stick.
I
And
think
Julie
that was
Duffy
a follow through all the way to the ground.
But that cost the Swiss a possession.
So this is going to be first man up possession for the Netherlands.
And then the Swiss offsides momentarily. Berger will have to go back behind the restraining line. So here's Switzerlandis Weinborg. 3 of the 6 for the Netherlands. Swung up top. Nice stick fake, and then the shot missed. Dika Spitzen. Nice initial stick fake, and she had even more time.
So the Swiss defense is going to play a little bit more collapse right now than they have been playing the entire first half. Just try to crowd that 8 as much as possible, and hopefully their communication can be.
Well, feed to the crease, and Janneke Bokes just took a shot in the facial region. Here comes another card. So we'll have 2 players down for the Swiss. A bailout check, Julia Marty, and that was a hockey-style cross-check.
Yeah.
And Bokes, because of the injury stoppage, she'll have to exit until some time comes off the clock.
So now you have a 2-man advantage
Yeah.
for the Netherlands.
And a true hockey-style 6-on-4, which is really unusual with these new setup or the new rules of a 10-on-10.
If she doesn't take this shot, the Swiss should probably go into a box zone.
Imke de Haan, who replaced Bacchus, she goes in for the backhand shot, fading away, and Louisa Moser makes the save. And now can the Swiss clear down 2 players? And they'll give it to Berger. And a terrific athlete in Stephanie Berger. As she drops it off. The Swiss, though, did they go off sides?
Yes.
They did. And that's a mental error, down 2 players.
I think what the Swiss are lacking is a just broad level base of communication, defensively communication. They're not necessarily on the same page, and although they're doing a good job of taking away some great things, they can't recover on their first slide, and most coaches would prefer that you can get the first and second slide.
Weaving through just the 4 defenders, Rihanna Ostwoud Videnis, 7-3 Netherlands. Ostwoud Videnis just waited for the defender to almost tire out chasing between the two.
And that's what I think you're going to see happen to the Swiss, unfortunately, with a 2-man down situation. Now the players on the field are having to overwork, and hopefully Coach Duffy is going to get some substitutes in for some of these girls. Yeah.
I believe the first yellow card on Layla Haller has already expired.
Yes.
There is only 2 on the defensive end right now for the Swiss. So they're playing with some fire if they give up transition. They put 3-on-3 in the draw circle. And we'll see if the Swiss can get back in the hole. And the pass for Switzerlandis. Viborg got away from her. But the pickup from the Dutch and Spitzen.
The Dutch are moving the ball really well. I can't wait to see them do this when it's an even situation, because they're going to be able to create so much more if they continue with this ball movement.
Another pass, and that shot hitting the pipe. That one we can hear hit it flush. Mika de Bakker with a look. And that's the end of the first half. 7-3, the Dutch still with some time left on a 1-player-up situation on a yellow card issued to Julia Marty. 7-3 is our score. We're back in 15 minutes to bring you the 4th game out of 6 today. The Dutch with a lead over the Swiss. We welcome you back for the start of the third quarter with Steffi Samaras, Ralph Bednarczyk. 7-3 the Netherlands as they control the draw to begin this third quarter. The Swiss and the Netherlands were even up at 3 before the Netherlands had the majority of possessions and also had the benefit of a pair of yellow cards against the Swiss, so they still have a precious few seconds in a 6-on-5. They just scored a two-person-up goal right before the break. Hamik, and Kosha Hamik weaves through. Scored early on free position. 8-3, the Dutch pulling away.
And I'm surprised that that's what they came out with in the second half. I didn't think that they would attempt to attack that quickly, especially when it became an even-up situation again. I'm hoping that Coach Duffy at halftime spent some time talking about the play of Sarah Swartz-Van.
Viborg.
Yep, that.
Yep, Switzerland's Viborg. She's got 3.
Yeah, that
It is a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, but she's got 3, and she is clearly the finisher on this team. So I'm hoping that was talked about a lot at halftime for Coach Duffy.
And meanwhile, Adam Gray of the Netherlands will continue to cycle through draw controllers. And they gather another nice pickup, this time outside the circle from Melle Van Dilkt. As Van Dilkt probes and look for something better 7-on-7.
We still haven't seen a clean draw from either of these teams. It becomes a ground ball battle after every single draw.
Yeah, each one's been well contested. No one's been able to self-draw. But here she is. Sweerts, the Landis Viborg shoots with the left hand right up high on Moser. And Louisa Moser, the diminutive goalie, you can see there is a lot of net that she's giving up. But with a quick hand, she made the save. Reichner.
I think she actually did a pretty good job of holding that post. Taking the angle away.
Now for the Swiss, if you're Julie Duffy, what do you think she emphasized at the half?
I'm hoping, just from that last play, she emphasizes taking the possession out of the Netherlands' hand in number 3. I'm not going to try to her name again, but we all know who she is.
Yes, yeah.
And I also think that they need to convert defensive turnovers into offensive possessions. I don't know if they've done a very good job of that in the first half, and that can be a huge key. I think they can get some good looks on the cage.
Here's Berger, Stephanie Berger, and her rise has been meteoric since the month of December. She cuts it to 8-4, an impressive-looking talent for the Swiss.
And I think the Swiss are going to get good looks on cage. They have to be able to use multiple people and not rely on 1 or 2 people, and sort of almost do the opposite of what the Netherlands is doing. Because I think right now the Netherlands is using their offense to benefit their entire field, whereas the Swiss are potentially a more both-ended team and can capitalize on that.
Hannah Broker now for the Swiss on the draw control. Berger getting her first of the game. And that ended a 6-goal run by the Dutch. The pickup off the wing, that's maybe the cleanest one, Kimberly Fureboom. And back behind at X, the Dutch with Kosha Hamink. Hamink watched by An Lee. The Swiss have stayed in the man-to-man. Can they tighten it up? Can they force some turnovers and just make the Dutch a little bit more uncomfortable?
And this is when I think that the Dutch may potentially start to take some time off of the clock, maybe not go into those one-on-ones right away, but here again we see number 3 really wants to go.
Sweetserlandis Viborg, and they shadow her looking for the blind side double. She's able to dish for the first time, but the pass carry through. Good thought. And you can see the mind at work from Sweetserlandis Viborg, sensing what was coming. She initiates again, now the clear out for her. Around Haller, just textbook. They went back to a redodge. Layla Haller was left on an island. The top defender for the Swiss, the closest defender too far away.
Again, and we saw this in the first half from Sarah. I'm going to call her Sarah until I can get her name down.
Yeah.
It'll take me a day or two, but we saw this in the first half from Sarah, the patience. And she, sometimes people would see that offensively as, oh, she's going back and forth and she's confusing her teammates. And when I see that, I see, no, she's putting her defender where she wants her, so then she can expose her and get the cage.
That might be her most impressive goal, the way that transpired. Now Alina Askim takes the draw. She attended high school in the U.S. That's where she learned lacrosse before traveling back to the Netherlands, where she returned home and coaches one of the club teams. That the structure still is not quite yet with all the club teams in the Netherlands. The 8 having a designated head coach. They kind of coach one another. but the hope is talking to Taylor Brown, the assistant, that eventually they'll get there. Now a fadeaway shot, feed to the crease, and Dika Spitzen fires it past Moser. 10-4.
That was a great take, and she realized after she caught that ball that she did not have an angle on the cage, so she was able to quickly spin and get that ball off on the cage. And again, when you can do that in front of the goalie and they can't track the ball, it makes their life much harder, much harder.
Spitzen scoring for the first time. Largest lead for the Dutch is now at 6. Broker towards the restraining line. And I think someone, and what was the call there? Nobody stepped over. But the Dutch have possession with Micah Theo. Push from Imke de Haan. As de Haan veers back and goes to Prasad. Prasad for Spitzen. As I asked head coach Adam Gray and assistant Taylor Brown, and they mentioned to me along with their manager, we don't necessarily have a star on this team. They defeated Germany in a scrimmage 2 days ago, 14-10. They felt that was a really big deal because Germany is in Group A. And they felt they had a bad showing 2 years ago in the World Championship in the last Euros. The Netherlands had something a little bit to prove. That was a big deal. And winning here by a lopsided score would add to that perhaps the Netherlands could be a team that challenges the bottom of Group A and could maybe put a fear into the top teams as we get the timeout for the water break. 10-4 is the score, the Dutch in control.
Yeah, I love how actually the Europeans does this split into the groups because it again, and you made this reference a game or two ago about how comparing it to European soccer. And I think that it continues to make everyone work, which is pretty much what you want when it comes to competing at this level. And I think the Dutch have done a really good job. For as much as we can talk about Sarah not being their go-to player, she's actually not in the game right now, and their offense is still running great without her in. It would be interesting to see her have the role of quarterback without actually having to go to cage all the time, or potentially feeling the need to go to the cage all the time. And as a coach, sometimes you think, am I asking too much of one person? Do I need to spread the wealth? So I wonder if that's what the Dutch coaches are having conversations about. And hopefully we can see the Swiss come out and try to battle that a little bit. I'd like to see them get a little bit more active defensively, take a few more risks. They're already in a position where it doesn't really matter if they do take risks.
10-4 out of this mid-third quarter water break. The Swiss will have possession. And Jacinta Idebelli as she crosses over. Sweep across, Broker. Did not pull the trigger. By the way, new goalie in for the Dutch for this third quarter. It's Frida Berenson. Good saves in the first half from Amaris Brandsma. And same thing, they feel both goalies pretty even. And this is a quick drive as Ann Lee shows good wheels, as Lee will be at the top of the 8-meter.
I hope that the Swiss can find some fluidity in their attack. We've seen two different types of offenses. We've seen the offense that can score at will, and then we've seen the offense that can score through an 8-meter. But you know, it's the offenses that are very fluid and that are cohesive and can attack from all different aspects of the 8 that are, I think, going to be the most successful.
They'll put Anouk Andres now to the 8. The Swiss need to end this run. Andres, the shot trickling through the feet of Frida Berenson. So that makes it 10-5 with a lot of time left.
Definitely a lot of time left, and hopefully, again, we've had conversations about momentum changes in a lot of these games, and is this a time that the Swiss can use this as a momentum changer to finish out this third quarter and go into the fourth quarter strong?
First for Anouk Andres. Anouk plays in Germany for a Munich team while she's getting her PhD. Now Melle van Dilkt, this draw control taker for the Dutch. It stays as Hannah Broker. And they're going to redo this draw. Broker with a tremendous size advantage, but has not been able to self-draw at all and get the ball high in the air in the other specialists that we've seen around the world. And that pass through, and it bounces in on Moser. Could have been a transition chance for Spitzen. So the Swiss catch a break, but then they overthrew the next pass, and that is out of the range of Lee.
So you talk about the self-draw, and I always find this interesting because there are teams that have people who can do it very well, and then there are teams that actually like to put the ball out on the circle because they think that their gritty person on the circle is going to win that 50-50 ball every single time. And it's always interesting to see how those 3 individuals match up. It's one of the new rules that I absolutely love, this 3-man game that they've created off of the draw. It's like a little small game within the big game.
And what once was a much bigger game, a 5-on-5 in the circle, not too long ago, as Baucus is fouled. Good to see Annika Baucus back on the field after she saw a yellow card issued on a hard slash by Julia Marty on her. So Baucus, she's closer to the 12. This is not a free position. Baucus then is tied up and hit hard again. And that time, Anine Moser, no relation to the goalie Luisa, may have gotten her with an elbow. Now it's a free position for Baucus. And Baucus to cage, and this one off the helmet of Moser. And she got it flush. Moser hangs in there, is able to concentrate on the ball rolling back to her.
Big time helmet save from the Swiss, and you hope that this is something that they can use to really take into their offensive end and get things moving.
And they may need to get the dent doctor on that helmet. But Moser remains in. Layla Haller redirects it, but then the pass through the stick of Julia Graf. And the kind of mistake that the Swiss cannot afford to take. They've had their chances to climb closer.
I think it's like I want to say it's like an optical illusion. They're like, we have all of this space. Where did the girls from the Netherlands go? And they're really packed in between the 50 and the restraint line. And the Swiss have had a really hard time getting the ball over the 50 into their offensive box. Not even over the restraint line.
That's a quick shot taken. Sweeps the Landis Viborg with a very tricky one, trying to go low to high. Now the Dutch with it. We come up on the final minute. Third quarter. 10-5 the Netherlands. They led 7-3 the break. Trying to sneak through some traffic there was Van Dilkt. And the Swiss force another Dutch turnover. We'll be coming up on the final 30 seconds where the fourth official will step on the field. And they're indicating that now, so the stoppage with under 30. We'll see the Czech Republic coming up next. And the Dutch will get it outside. Spitzen, who's got a goal here. Hamink, who's got 2 on the game. Flag is out. The Dutch will be back down to the 12. You wonder how Louisa Moser is feeling. Again, she took a shot flush off the crown of the helmet. Hamik finds another shooter and a finish. Hold up a moment, did it count? Remember, we were under 30, and the ball has to cross the goal line for it to count. It cannot be in the air. That's a different rule than the NCAA rule. And the fourth official is over at the table and saying no goal. It did not count, so that happened after the clock. Very bang bang. With no scoreboard here, we're fortunate that this is it is a 5-goal game, and that goal is not more significant. Adam Gray frustrated as he's over by the table. So that's the end of 3 quarters, 10-5. The Netherlands with the lead.
I think the Swiss might have got a little lucky right there, going into the fourth quarter 10-5 instead of 11-5. I know that's only a 1-goal difference, but it's a little bit more manageable. You make 2 big saves to end out the third quarter. They need to come up with a ground ball off of the draw. And they need to create a little bit more on offense.
And it's going to be interesting, bigger picture, Steffi, ahead of knockout round play, how the clock situations, these short time situations are administered, has to be taken care of ahead of a key playoff game.
I 100% agree. And for as much as I love a 4-man team with somebody on the bench, I can already tell that some of these coaches are going to start to get a little ticked off that there might not be a clock on the field. They don't actually know when to do it. I'm surprised that from a player standpoint, they haven't fought for it for their players. You know, we've talked about this quarterback on the field. You know, you probably wouldn't let Tom Brady play without a clock on the field, especially with his snap counts. But we're asking these girls to control their teams in certain situations without the knowledge base of what they're working with from a time standpoint. And a lot of these coaches do things based on time. You know, we have something called the 7-second drill off of the draw. We have clearly a 2-minute drill, whether you're man down or man up, based on a card. I'm sure they practice the 30 seconds and what happens in the last 30 seconds because of that time being stretched with the clock stopping on fouls. So it is an interesting thing that we don't have the ability to use something like that for these games.
Yeah, we're certainly going to keep you abreast of how they may administer it, but that was a situation where, again, if it's an important goal, it would really be contested and debated. Fourth quarter set to begin, 10-5 the Netherlands. And this is a field, by the way, that had extensive renovations done to have it prepared and to look as good as it does. But a portable scoreboard was not available, at least since we last heard, as Stephanie Berger comes up with a ground ball off the circle. Berger trying to get across the restraining line. Prasad chasing her. Berger in some trouble. And finally will get it across the line. And here we go for the Swiss. They've been in a situation where the Netherlands could knock them out with a punch, but they've hung around enough. But now they turn it over. Push from Feuerbom. Kimberly Feuerbom, shooting space is the call. And 2 officials will gather. It was a whistle from the official that was trailing the play.
One called the foul and one called the goal.
Yeah, we're still waiting for a signal from our officials that are conferencing. Officials that did not know one another beforehand. And it is free position that is granted to Kimberly Feuerbom. Feuerbom straight on. And Feuerbom shoots high. Even through the contact of Vera Pfeiffer. 11-5 Dutch.
You know, that was unfortunate for the Swiss because they actually came up with that draw pretty clean. But Berger, you know, we have a sort of a joke in the United States with their restraint lines that sometimes when you have this fear of crossing over into your offensive end, and you like to turn right before the restraint line, right when the pressure is about to be alleviated, because most of the people running behind you have to stay behind the restraint line, and we call it like its own little trap. And it seems like that's what happened to her. And then, unfortunately, they lost possession of the ball.
Nice straw control. That one popped in the air for Den Bakker. But then look at Louisa Moser on this loose ball out of cage. And the Swiss gather it. They trail by 6 again. Vera Pfeiffer.
I really like the ride that the Netherlands is doing. They're causing enough of an issue for the Swiss that the Swiss are making simple mistakes that could probably be easily controlled, but because they've set up in this zone ride, it's really hard to find who the open player is.
Yeah, that pass short hop Stephanie Brock. The Dutch with it again. Bellamy Persad. And she goes up top, 14, Van Dilkt.
And now you get into a situation that the Netherlands has a 6-goal lead, and they have the ability now in the fourth quarter to potentially slow things down.
Van Dilkt finds the trailer, and the pass was dropped. That was there for the taking for Den Bakker. And the Swiss, they come up with a ground ball. Jacinta Idabelli. Idabelli played at Division III Mount Holyoke in Massachusetts. She's the most experienced for the Swiss team in terms of length of time she's played. And the only Swiss player that has NCAA experience. Baumberger, as she weaved in, could not get the shot past Berenson. First time we've mentioned Salome Berenson's name, or rather Salome Baumberger's name in a while. She was much more involved early.
The Netherlands defense did a really good job there of taking her off of her angle to cage, so her angle was decreased significantly. Big credit for them doing that, especially since she had the direct line to cage from the center of the field.
And the Netherlands will slow it down. 11-5 is their lead. Pass to the crease, and that was telegraphed. Good knockdown from Reikener. Idabelli. And Idabelli, who played for the same college coach that Julie Duffy played for when she was at Hartwick. Very aggressive defender. She's all over the field. You can see her energy as Coach Duffy explained to me her goal is to get 2 interceptions or 2 knockdowns each game. I think she's probably capable of that in this tournament. Pass inside, that doesn't count.
I love it when defenders set tangible goals. A lot of times, girls like, yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that. How do you actually measure those goals? So, if she can say that she has an actual statistical goal,
that goal does not go. But a good look. Sweerts to Landis Viborg got a cross-cage pass, and we're shocked that she didn't finish. She's got 4 in the game. Has not shot it in quite some time, though. But it's at 11-5. The Dutch still with a comfortable lead. The Swiss back behind. The Netherlands will take on Latvia tomorrow night. And then a matchup against Italy and Norway to close out. So a good chance for the Netherlands to capture this group. As the pass was inside, but unable to squeeze through was Eicher. Berenson threw a strike across, and the Netherlands with a wide open clear in front of them. Geerta Olthus picks up the clear, starting defender. She heads back, and the Dutch putting on some finishing touches.
I also think that the Swiss have got to regroup at some point. I don't know if Coach Duffy has. I think she has another timeout, but now they haven't subbed in a while.
And the Dutch just overwhelming the Swiss, perhaps with their depth. That's Dika Spitzen that carries in and scores. 12-5. Now it's the largest lead for the Netherlands. Spitzen comes up with her second. (12-5) the lead. And for the Dutch, group play is all about capturing this Group B and being in position for what would be the 7th seed into the knockout round. What do you see from the Netherlands should they be there? We've seen Italy, we'll see Norway coming up, of course, this week. What do you see from the Netherlands in terms of the pieces they have to challenge at least several of the Group A teams?
Well, they clearly have shown that they have a finisher. And now that she's not in the game, I love seeing more of their attackers getting involved. If they can organize their offense to be able to actually finish strong every single time, and we've seen the last 3 or 4 possessions they've had, this is now the 2nd time that they've shot, and there's been a call right before the shot.
In this case, Kimberly Feuerbroom doesn't mind that. She had just scored. She scores anyway on the shot that counts on the shooting space call. 13-5. And we're going to get a timeout here by the Swiss. So a teaching opportunity for Coach Julie Duffy and the Swiss. It's her final timeout.
I love the ride. I love how they compact their zone into basically a 15-yard area of the field, and it gives this illusion that, hey, look at all this space over here, but wait until we bring you into our trap. I think that's been really interesting because the other zones we've seen have been in between the restraint lines. And maybe the Netherlands does that because they understand their capabilities, or where they want to cause the turnover allows them to have even greater speed coming into their offensive end. But I really like what they're doing with that ride. I think they need to have both teams, from a defensive standpoint, we haven't heard a lot of communication. We haven't heard the goalies being loud. And you don't necessarily have to be loud, but we've seen a lot of simple breakdowns, not major breakdowns, but simple breakdowns that are probably communication based. Normally when you have a simple breakdown on the lacrosse field, it tends to be a communication based breakdown. So I'd like to see that that tweaked a little bit from both teams.
Yeah, Steffi, you make a great point as we bring you these broadcasts on YouTube. We are sitting right at midfield, just several yards off the sideline. So we would hear the goalies directing their defenses. That has not happened yet, especially with the bar that we hear at the NCAA level, games on television, the national championship games that have mics close to the field. You can certainly hear it, and how coached up that part of the game is, where you can hear goalies instruct defenders. It hasn't quite reached the level of that nuance yet for these European teams.
And we're coming off of a year where the Tewaaraton Award
was the first goalie
was the first goalie ever, Megan Trainor from the University of Maryland. And I know that if she wasn't screaming or didn't lose her voice at the end of the game, then she wasn't playing hard.
The Netherlands coming up with the latest draw control. They lead 13-5. This game was 3-3, though, at the end of the first quarter. A very competitive first quarter. In the back half of the second quarter, the Dutch really asserted themselves. Led 7-3 at the half, but they picked up a couple of yellow cards against the Swiss. Looked like it was just a matter of time before they'd separate themselves, and that's what's happened. Persaud, had the good third look on the pass, but she sent it behind Bacchus. It was backed up, though, and the Swiss keep it. Switch to Landis Viborg. She had the flag and will decide to take a free position.
We're seeing the sort of the drama of these free positions, and notice they're now moving her all the way across the field to where the foul actually happened. I will say that I don't know if there's been consistency on that from an umpiring standpoint, but wow, she's got some power.
Mm-hmm. Yep, she tried to put it to that near pipe to her, but missed it to that short side with Moser covering up. And we should note that these officiating crews generally, I think, don't know one another, or at least all that well, but it's also a development opportunity for officials from other countries. I understand we have an official here from one of the Asian countries.
Yeah.
Of course, several from different European countries. There are a couple of American and Canadian officials too, as Bellamy Persaud comes up with a thrown away clear by the Swiss. We saw last year here in Netanya for the men's tournament, which had 45 teams, so you had a load of games on 6 different fields, but there were also officials in training. When the real officials would be making their calls, the hand signals, there would be someone right at the table dressed in officials' uniform doing the signals and mimicking them.
Oh, I love that idea.
So it could be a little strange and maybe a little bit awkward and funny, but you would see someone giving the exact penalty call, mimicking the person in front of them. So it would look like, I suppose, maybe a yoga class of some kind, or an aerobics class, maybe a little better for you, Steffi, where you have two people, one person mirroring the other, but I promise you it was all done with purpose.
And the hand signals in the men's game, I know that the women are focusing on that from an umpiring standpoint because they want all the players to be able to understand what the call they're making without actually verbally communicating. But the hand signals in the men's game is so important that it's really interesting that's the way that they want. I would be excited to hear if the women started to do that from an officiating standpoint.
And I'm not sure why exactly that isn't the case, as the Dutch turn over the Swiss again. As carrying forward is Harriet van Hoor. She is a doctor of medicine and also runs as the 4th defender in the large rotation that the Dutch have consistently cycling through bodies. We're under 3 minutes to go. Unofficially, the Dutch with a 13-5 edge. Then to Cage, and that shot missed over the top for Mika Den Bakker. Back behind, Hamming. Den Bakker gets another chance. How about the attack? Kosha Hamming just waited for that. They were determined to give Den Bakker another look. She had just missed the cage, and it's 14-5.
And I think you see a little bit of the frustration in the Swiss defense. They thought that she was just exiting the 8, and she cut right back down the center of the field with nobody on her. And again, that's just simple frustration. We talk about the simple things and what the Swiss can change. And that was simply a communication breakdown. Nobody called who was guarding her, and she almost sliced in between two of the Swiss defenders to catch that pass and score that goal.
Great assist from Kosha Hamik. Den Bakker getting her first of the game. And the scoring balance also tremendous for the Dutch. So if you count the scrimmage against Germany when they won that one 14-10, and the Dutch showing that they could be in position where they can give some of the top teams a game.
Yeah, one of the things that we talk a lot about in the U.S. is not that you have to hold another team to a certain amount of goals, but that you have to be able to produce as many goals, if not more, than they can produce. And that was the interesting thing in the national championship game between Maryland and Boston College. At one point, we were, it was on track to be like a 20-21 game, and finally their defenses were able to step up. But that might be something that the Netherlands takes into a different game. Hey, we know we can produce a lot. They might be able to produce more. Can we produce as much, if not more, than they can do? And that's just a game tactic.
And the Dutch will still need to see, I think, a bit more from both goalies. Who will be their full-time starter? Will Coach Adam Gray split? Frida Berenson playing the second half. The starter today was Amaris Brandsma. Hamink. And meanwhile, by the way, we just had the stoppage as Kimberly Feuerboom limped off the field with an apparent ankle injury. So we'll watch for that tomorrow as the Netherlands will take on Latvia tomorrow night. That'll be the last game at 10:20 local time. The Dutch can try to hold it for the remainder.
I think their coach wants their middies to work.
They swing it here for Louisa Koopmans. Over the top, another cutter, and the shot couldn't be finished. That's a good look, good catch and cradle. Imke de Haan, everything but the goal. Then another shot. Moser will finally pin it to the turf.
The Netherlands is doing a really good job of creating multiple opportunities, and that was another pipe that they just had there. The grubbing on the crease. I don't know if that's the term that other people use, but that's the term that I use when it comes to attackers who can seal off the crease and see if a shot's going to come back out at them from potentially the pipe or the goalie. And we've seen a couple of particular players that have been able to do that really well. And again, we talk about a lot of layers to different offenses. That's a whole other layer that if you have somebody who's got really quick hands, they're able to collect that ball and then get it back in the cage really quick, it's just another layer to an offense.
I haven't heard grubbing the crease yet.
Grubbing the crease.
I have not heard that. Is that a Maryland term?
I think you caught me, Ralph. I think you caught me. Grubbing is definitely, you grub on food.
It sounds like it would have something to do with crabs, doesn't it?
It probably has a lot to do with crabs. Actually, now that you say that, I'm trying to
someone
think of
text Kathy Reese. Is grubbing a Maryland term?
Is grubbing a Maryland term? I'm going to go with yes. She's going to say yes. I think I can even remember.
That's not grubbing.
No.
That is painting a corner. Great finish from Ostvan Videnis. Rian Ostvan Videnis gets her second of the game.
I was really lucky. I got to guard Kathy Reese in college. She was a senior and I was a sophomore, and I actually had to guard her in the national championship game. And I think she might have used the term grubbing in that game.
No,
I'm going to go with it. I'm just going to go with it.
Huh. Is it a term that's always been around, or has it been resuscitated from the dead?
I think it's been very consistent. We had this conversation a few weeks ago with a bunch of the college coaches, and my sister was involved in this conversation about this two-man game that we play on the crease, going back to like one of the greats of all time, Mandy O'Leary, who's now the coach at Florida, and Karen Peterson, who was an all-time great at Maryland. They used to call this crease play called bacon and eggs. And all the girls were like, "Why is it called bacon and eggs?" I was like, "It's what you eat for breakfast." It's like a gimme on the crease. Why is it called bacon and eggs? I don't know, but I can't think of anything happening around the crease that doesn't relate to bacon and eggs.
Sounds like it's dinner time for us, Steffi. 15-5 is the final, as the goal by Ostwald Videnis came in the final seconds. The Dutch celebrate behind their keeper, Frida Berenson, who played well. But overall, the depth of the Dutch wearing down the Swiss in this finish. The Dutch will take on Latvia tomorrow night. Coming up next at approximately 8:20 local time, it'll be Austria against the Czech Republic. And then tonight, in the finale, Sweden will take the field for the first time against Finland. We'll talk to you in about an hour on YouTube.